let's cut through all the noise. You've heard the hype, right? The crypto craze, the buzzwords, but let's just forget all that for a minute. What is blockchain actually good for in a real business? When does it stop being hype and start being genuinely useful? That's what we're going to break down right now. So this whole thing really boils down to one simple, classic business problem. It's something you see in pretty much every industry. Just picture it. You've got competitors, suppliers, partners. They all have to work together, share info. But how do you do that when you don't fully trust each other? And let's be honest, maybe you shouldn't fully trust them with all your data. Right. What they really need is some kind of neutral territory, a shared source of truth that everyone can agree on. Think of it like a digital rulebook or a ledger that isn't owned by any one company. And here's the kicker. Nobody can sneak in and secretly change the records once they're written down. And that, right there, is the exact problem blockchain is built to solve. Now, don't let the word blockchain scare you off. It sounds super complex, I know. But for today, let's just think of it as a toolkit, a set of practical tools, each one designed to help build that shared, trusted system. Okay, first tool in the box, immutability. It's a fancy word, but the idea is actually super simple and really powerful. It just means that once you record something on the blockchain, whether it's a payment, a log, whatever, it's locked in, for good. It becomes a permanent, unchangeable, time-stamped link in a chain. You can't delete it, you can't alter it. So what does that actually look like? Well, imagine a supplier puts a payment record on the chain. Because it's immutable, nobody, not the buyer, not the supplier, not some random admin, can go back later and fudge the numbers. You can't hide a delay, you can't change the amount. It's done. Everyone sees the exact same history. And that's that. All right, tool number 2 is something called a smart contract. And honestly, the best way to get your head around this is to think of a smart contract as just a really, really smart vending machine. You know how a vending machine works, right? You put in the money, that's the condition being met, and bam, it automatically spits out your soda. That's the action. There's no person involved. That's all a smart contract is. It's a contract that executes itself automatically when the rules, which are written in code, are met. And this is where things get really cool, because it's all about automation. So let's say you have a contract that's programmed to release a payment as soon as a shipment arrives. The second a GPS signal confirms that container hit the port, bam! The smart contract just runs. Payment is sent instantly. No one has to chase down an invoice, no one has to click approve, it just happens. And that brings us to our third big tool, traceability and provenance. Fancy terms, but they just mean one thing. You can see the entire journey of an item from start to finish. You get the full, verifiable story of a product, where it came from, where it's been, every single step of the way. And why should you care? Well, for some industries, this is an absolute game changer. We're talking about being able to track a shipment of medicine and prove it was kept at the right temperature the whole time. Or being able to scan a designer bag and know for sure it's the real deal, not a knockoff. Or, and this is huge, if there's a food recall, you can pinpoint the exact source of the problem in minutes, not days or weeks later. So, okay, we've got our toolkit, right? An unchangeable record, self-executing contracts, and perfect traceability. That all sounds great in theory, but what's the real-world impact? Like, what are the actual numbers? Let's take a look at how this stuff is already changing the game out there. Okay, first step, agricultural trade finance. And before blockchain, this whole process was just a nightmare. Seriously, we're talking stacks of manual paperwork, faxes, yes, faxes, endless spreadsheets. It was slow, clunky, and people were arguing all the time. But when you introduce a single shared ledger that everyone can see and trust, well, the whole dynamic shifts. And the results? They're not just a little better, they're dramatic. A process that used to take 10 days of back and forth to settle everything, now gets done in one. That is a massive leap in efficiency. And it's all because everybody is finally on the same page, looking at the same trusted data, with smart contracts doing the heavy lifting. Okay, let's look at another one, pharmaceuticals. The supply chain here is critical. And the old way was a real problem. You had all these different partners, the manufacturer, the shipper, the warehouse, and they all kept their own separate records. It was a mess of data silos. So if a batch of medicine spoiled because it got too warm, good luck figuring out exactly where and when it happened. But now you can hook up temperature sensors directly to a shared blockchain, so everyone sees the data in real time. The second a problem happens, an alarm goes off. And the result of this? a jaw-dropping 75% reduction in spoilage. Just let that sink in. For every 4 shipments that used to be ruined, now only 1 is. That's not just saving a bunch of money. It's literally saving medicine and making things safer for patients. And look, this isn't just about farming or pharma. These ideas apply all over the place. In finance, you can settle international payments in minutes instead of days. In government, you can create land registries that are totally tamper-proof, ending ownership disputes. Basically, anywhere you have different groups trying to work together who don't fully trust each other, these tools can help.
Okay, so it's easy to hear all this and think blockchain is the answer to everything, but we've got to pump the brakes a little bit here. It is definitely not a magic bullet, and it's super important to understand that it comes with some very real challenges and limitations.
So let's do a quick reality check. First, scalability. For some things, like high-speed trading, it's just not fast enough. Yet. Then there's privacy. All this transparency is great, until you need to keep business secrets, you know? And integration. Trying to connect this newfangled tech with your decades-old computer systems, yeah, that's going to be complicated and expensive. And maybe the biggest one of all, garbage in, garbage out. If someone enters the wrong data, well, now you just have the wrong data permanently carved in digital stone. So with all that, the big question is, how do you know if this powerful but kind of tricky tool is actually the right fit for you? Well, that brings us to the final verdict. And luckily, there's a pretty simple checklist you can use to figure it out. Here it is. Just ask yourself these 4 questions. Number 1, do I have a bunch of different people or companies who all need to update the same database? Number 2, is there a trust issue between these guys? 3, is it absolutely critical that the records can never, ever be changed? And finally, number 4, do I need to automate agreements and rules between them? And listen, this might be the most important part of this whole thing. If you went through that list and answered no to most of those questions, then you probably don't need a blockchain. Honestly, a good old-fashioned database is almost certainly going to be simpler, faster, and a whole lot cheaper. So at the end of the day, that's the key. Blockchain is a very specific tool for a very specific problem, fixing a lack of trust between different groups. It's not a hammer for every nail, but for the right nail, it can be absolutely transformative. So that leaves me with one final question for you to think about. What's the big trust gap in your world that's just waiting for a solution?